And I just got a notification on my phone that there's quite a few people on this call, which is awesome. So thank you if you're on the West Coast for waking up early. And one specifically, I think if you're on Lisa Crawford, she hired me 20 something years ago. So Lisa, shout out to you, girl. Thank you for all the opportunities. But today I'm excited to talk to you about the foundation of what win the relationship, not the deal means. I want to talk to you about some stories personal of my journey over the last 25 years or so. I spent 20 years combined at Hall Kenyon. Shout out to the old HKers, and then all my time at Kforce as well. But it was an amazing time. But with that, let's get started. Before I present, I always like sharing a little bit pictures about me, my family, just to kind of get you to know a little bit more about who I am. So the upper left, it's actually a few years ago. My daughter's grown, but that's her and her basketball team. They are some feisty ladies. I would not want to mess with them. So if you're a hooper and you see her on the court, I would not accept that challenge, because this squad will take you down. When my kids were younger, we were up in the San Juan Islands, beautiful place up in the North Washington area, if you get the chance. And then in the theme of relationships, the big dude in the middle, not me, the other guy with the glasses, that's my offensive lineman from Central Washington University way back in the day. And below is my family. We're all masked up last summer. We headed out to the East Coast. It was kind of the first time traveling during this pandemic, but it felt good. I get out. And then there's proof in the middle. I always got to give a shout out to Uncle Rico, Napoleon Dynamite moment. I did play football in college, for the record, which I always like making fun of myself on my podcast, which we can talk about later. And lastly, there's a view from a place we stay at on the East Coast on an island called Cuttyhunk Island off the coast of Massachusetts. If you're ever out there, check it out. And then lastly, me and my son, I'm on a couple boards at Central Washington University, and that was the very first home game, brand new stadium, and we got treated very, very well. But it was a cool moment that I'll never forget. So, all right, well, let's get started. So who am I? A little bit about me. I'll make this quick. So like I said, I spent 20 years within a mix of Hall Kenyon and Kforce. Huge shout out to a lot of people who taught me so much. From Jeffrey Neal, Kai Mitchell. Shout out to Don Harvey, Dave Dunkel, Joe Libatori. The list goes on forever. Kelly Hansen for getting me involved. I was thankfully lucky enough. I had some amazing teammates. I had a right guy, right time. I was the #1 producer at Kforce nationally for 10 straight years. Moved into an executive role later, where I had the opportunity to do a lot of coaching, speaking. Really acted as an executive sponsor for some of our largest customers, and really helped move us into more services based out of staff augmentation. Now I'm a sales and leadership coach. If you'd have told me I'd be doing this 6 years ago, I don't know if I would have believed you, but I can't tell you how much fun I'm having right now working with some amazing clients. Shout out to Clear Edge, Leslie, Megan McCann at McCann Partners, just a few, where I really teach the power of asking great questions. I'm also the host of the Quarterback Dadcast. This has nothing to do with football. Sometimes people think it is, but it's really about helping dads become better leaders of their home. We inspire dads to share stories. I learn about their ups, their downs. We have dads share what maybe a gap in their dad game that they're looking to get better. And it's been a very fun journey. So if you're a dad, you're looking for some laughter, maybe some tears, and some good advice from some amazing dads I've talked to, please check it out. We're on all the major podcast players. And then lastly, I am the author of Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. Something that's a book I'm extremely proud of. And we're going to go into a little bit the pillars of each chapter today. And I hope that after this webinar that you might be so kind to go check it out on Amazon, and then also connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. I'm ridiculously curious. So with that, let's get started. So expectations for today. I want us to learn and interact. Now I can't see you from my view. So Jacob's going to be so kind to help kind of monitor some of the chat and share with us. I want to remind us that the fundamentals will always rule. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant would shoot thousands of free throws, thousands of shots before each basketball game. People who are elite at what they do, it's not luck. It's not just a miracle. They're doing things behind the scenes that most people don't see. They're making the choices to do, whether it's documenting in our CRM, whether it's making call lists, whether it's making the calls, whether it's going to networking events, whatever it may be. It's the little things that maybe you don't always see that differentiates them. So we'll talk about that. And I really hope you can leave inspired with action, something to either make you have that aha moment, like, man, how was I not doing that? Or, oh, that was a good piece of advice. Because for me, anytime I join trainings or webinars, sometimes it's just a good refresher about these reminders that we need to be doing that we're just not doing. So let's keep going. So I found this quote and I really liked it. So I think about in the spirit of the little things and accomplishing great things. This says, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. So if you think about when people say, man, I need to work out. I need to start growing my business. I should do more of those things. But do me this favor, like write down the word. If you're in front of your computer right now, write down need to, should to, and have to real quick. So need to, should to, have to, and then put big X's in all three of those phrases. And I never want you to say those words again. I want you to say, I will or I won't. That's simple. And be comfortable with that mindset. Like you will or you won't. It's that simple. Either you will make time to go work out. You will eat healthy. You will get on the phone. You will reach out to more people on LinkedIn, or you won't, right? We all have the same amount of time in a day. We're all given 1,440 minutes. It's just up to us to figure out what we want to do differently with each minute to be that much more successful. So with that, I always like sharing my goals with people. So you think about when you share a goal, it's a little scary because now it's out there. And sometimes we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts in our mind each day, science says. Of those, 80% are negative. Kind of a scary thought, right? This negative self-talk, I have it all the time, just like you guys do as well, I'm sure. But when we share our goals with our peers, our leaders, now we have someone who can help hold us accountable, not just to scare us, but to inspire us, to help us get there, to help be our coach, to figure, okay, what am I doing differently? What do I need to do differently? What do I need to stop doing? So I would encourage you. And I also give a shout out to Angela Aronica if you're on this call. She taught me this thing about vision boards. I'm looking at my vision board on my wall. Angie, be proud that we're still doing it. I'm still doing it. And when I first heard about it, when I was like in my mid 20s, I was like, man, what is this? Arts and crafts? Some kind of arts and crafts time? I thought we're in the business world. But vision boards are legit because you visualize, you see it all the time. And when your thoughts become things. And when you see something, when you want to do something, it actually happens twice, once in your brain and then once when you go do it. So I would encourage you, if you're not sharing your goals, do it today because you'll find it to be successful. All right, Jacob, your time to help here, brother. So quick icebreaker. I want you to tell me, what is your equation for leadership, right? Just a quick, maybe if you think about a couple words that come to mind, I'm going to show you what mine is. So if there's sales leaders, if there's recruiting leaders, if there's HR leaders, leadership to me, the same thing about sales leadership, it aligns directly with team leadership. And I'll explain to you why. So I'll give you a few seconds. Jacob, you can start just maybe reading some of these that come through. That'd be helpful for me.
And consistent communication from Liz. Ability, inspiring. Emily just had the
okay.
Walk a mile, vision and communication, leading by example, and mentorship.
Love it.
Good.
Perfect. I'll keep going. I'll keep going, Jacob. So like for me, everybody, mine is H plus V equals leadership. And H stands for humility and V stands for vulnerability. Best leaders I ever worked for had those qualities. And Uncle Rico moment from Napoleon Dynamite coming here. So when I played football in college, my quarterback coach, Bo Baldwin, who's now the head football coach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, he said, Casey, if you're good, you're going to tell everybody. But when you're great, they're going to tell you. And that really always stood out to me because I think about, what helped me stay at the top from a selling producer perspective at Kforce for so long is I was so scared it was going to be gone away. And I was so inspired by doing the little things. I never wanted it to be taken away. And I never wanted to be known as someone that was like that dude in the cigarette boat, tattoos everywhere, chains, velour suit. Lisa, if you're on there, some old Kforce, you guys might know who I'm talking about. I never wanted to be that dude. And vulnerability to me is so powerful for leaders because as a leader or a seller, when you're building relationships with people, if you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know. Right? One of my mentors in life, John Kaplan, he said, it's okay not to know every answer. It's just not okay not to do anything about it. Right? So too often not think about it. If you're account manager, account director on this phone, you might have been in front of a staffing technology manager. They're talking about all these crazy technology terms. You're like, whoa, what do those mean? Do you shake your head? Oh yeah, and pretend you know what you're talking about? Or you say, wait, can you hold on real quick, Mr. Manager? Tell me more about that technology. I'm not familiar with it, right? We don't need to be experts, right? You need to be great relationship builders, and sometimes being vulnerable to show we all can learn from people. And when someone knows something a lot about something and you ask questions, high percentage of the time, they're going to keep wanting to talk to you about it. Okay. So I would encourage you to really study and think about those two words, humility and vulnerability. Okay. Anybody know who this is? Jacob, see if anybody can in the chat, anybody know who this is? I'll give you guys a couple seconds.
Wooden.
John Wooden. That's right. He talks about the little things. So for those that don't know John Wooden, he was a coach, basketball coach at UCLA, multiple national championships, one of the all-time greatest coaches in the history of college basketball. I was fortunate enough to interview a guy named Swen Nader, who played for Coach Wooden. One of the most amazing conversations. If you want to check out, you can go to my website or you can find it on iTunes, wherever you consume podcasts. And Swen wrote a book called "You Have Not Taught Until They Have Learned." And the little things that Coach Wooden talked about were, so you think about you're in college basketball, you got a D1 scholarship. The first practice, he taught them how to put on their socks and tie their shoes. Now, when you're first getting to the NCAA, UCLA, you're like, what is this dude doing? Like, why are we working on that? But he wanted to make sure they put on the right socks. They wanted to make sure they tied their shoes correctly so they wouldn't get blisters, because if they got blisters, then they can't practice. So I love that. I love telling that story because it's about the little things they matter. And for us in the staffing recruiting business, there's always little things we can be doing, right? It's not going to be just lucky that someone's going to be successful. So we'll dive into that. But his quote says, it's the little details that are vital. Little things make big things happen. And I so wholeheartedly believe that. So hope you can take time to research Wooden. He's a great man of wisdom. So Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. It's on Amazon right now, but I wanted to talk about where this idea started. It really started from a trip I had in Dallas. And I was, when I was at Kforce, I used to travel quite a bit. And one of our largest customers in the telecom industry, communications industry, I was down really opening up our Dallas relationship base with them from Seattle, and spent time with a lot of folks. And there was a gentleman named Rob Cornwell, who's still at Kforce, great dude. And him and a few other people who did not have a lot of experience with me at the time, they were so anxious, and I could see it in their face. They were green. They eager to please the guy at the company that was the more senior to them. They wanted to win every deal. They wanted to win every person. They were just like so competitive, which I love, but sometimes it was to their detriment. And I said, guys, hey, let me try to explain this to you. We're not going to win every deal, but I want you to expect to win every deal. Let me say that again. You're not going to win every deal, but I want you to expect to win every deal. However, I want you to win every person. And I stopped and looked at them. I said, tell me what that means. And a lot of them were confused. I said, let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm still I'm at ABC Staffing Company, and we, Jans, Jacob and Gustav, they wanted to hire 3 Java developers from us. And let's say that I don't get it done. Our team doesn't get it done. And Jacob and team hires 3 from Susie's recruiters shop, whatever they're called, right? Now, here's where I would win people and managers time and time again. So after we lost, I would follow up about a week later, and I would say, Jacob, man, thank you again so much for the opportunity to compete. I'm bummed that our team wasn't able to get it done, and I wasn't able to get it done for you, but I just wanted to follow up to make sure that you got everything you needed from Susie's shop, and I want to make sure that the talent you hired is everything that you thought it would be. Now, that might seem simple, that might seem redundant, but I can tell you the number of times I did that, and the client would say, man, Casey, thanks for following up. I really appreciate that. Or they'd say, you know what, Casey, your timing is great because the 2 people that were supposed to start didn't show up. Are your people still available? And before I would call, I would make sure I talked to my recruiting team or my delivery team to ask them that question. And there was numerous times I would pick up easy free deals just by being proactive, following up and winning a relationship, not a deal. So I hope that's one little small tidbit I did along the way. Hold on, quick little shot of coffee here. That helped me. That I'm still using that whole phrase today, and I'll share a story here later. So when we think about this in the chat, just again, a few seconds. Why is it so important to win people versus deals? In the chat, maybe Jacob, just share with me, give us maybe 20 seconds or so. I'd love for you to hear what you guys think. What comes to mind and why that's important to win deals versus a transaction?
Legacy.
It's a good one.
Deals come and go, people remain.
Boom. Love. Who said that?
That's from Darren Bitter.
Well done, Darren.
Relationships are forever. Short term versus long term. Deal is an event. Relationships are lasting.
Love it.
Buy
Love
from
that
who
one.
you like.
Be yourself.
Remember.
Always be yourself. That's right.
Yeah. They will remember you for the next order. The follow-up is key.
Yep, I love it. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
All right, golden rule. Chapter 1 talks about the golden rule, right? This is what we call treating people the way we want to be treated. I don't know about you, but when I was in kindergarten, when I was young, my mom and dad, I almost said moms. I didn't have two moms. That came out wrong. My mom and dad, my teachers, they said, treat people the way you want to be treated. I don't care if it's your sister, your brother. What's funny though is when we get to be adults, that's not like cool anymore. You know, someone cuts us off, we get mad. Someone cuts in line, we get mad. Finance doesn't get us our commission report on time, we get mad. Production doesn't happen, we get mad. Recruiting doesn't give me, we're candidates, we get mad. We don't stop sometimes to think about giving people the benefit of the doubt, right? I used to joke, like when things did not go my way, I stopped myself and I said, do you think they woke up that morning and said, man, I can't wait to get to work and ruin Casey's day. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to do everything I can to make Casey mad. I'm going to frustrate him. I'm going to make his day horrible, right? Hope, obviously I'm being sarcastic, but no. But when we have that mindset and freeing of forgiveness versus judging, watch what happens. So when we do that, it sets the tone, right? So one of the exercises I shared in the book, if you guys decide to check it out, is tell me the last time you walked into an office or whether it's a Zoom call and you started with appreciation for someone, right? Just being positive. You think about the story when last time you go to Starbucks, if you're in the or wherever you get your coffee, and the person in front of you buys your coffee for you, it immediately sends happiness to you. It's like, well, that was nice. And then in theory, what do? We most likely buy coffee for the people behind us. Sometimes what I like to do, I shake it up. I'll buy it for the next three. Now, I wouldn't encourage you to do that. It will be out of business, but Starbucks stock will go through the roof. But I wouldn't encourage. But what's fun about that is it's paying it forward. I call it throwing boomerangs. You're throwing boomerangs of positivity, because when you throw boomerangs of positivity, they always come back to you, right? Uncle Rico moment coming here. So when I entered the huddle in college with confidence, with positivity, a higher percentage than not, we're going to have a successful outcome or successful play. And I have to believe what I do matters. And I have to believe what the coach called, just like our leaders are going to call plays. We have to believe what they do and buy into it. And when we do that, it sets positivity for our culture. The more we can be positive as sales leaders, as salespeople, as recruiters, people are going to want to be around people who are positive, not negative, bringing negative energy to the room, right? Like I said, it creates positivity. We want to be around that. Does anybody know who this dude is? I'll give you a few seconds. You can kind of read his cursive. But Jacob, is anybody writing names in the chat?
One.
Perfect. We're going to learn something today. So in 1897, this dude, my research for my book is it's Orson Swett Martin. He created a magazine called Success Magazine. Back in the 1800s, he had over 500,000 subscribers. So think about that. No internet, no fax machines. Anybody old enough to know what those were? I got a great fax story if anybody wants to hear it after this. He was someone so passionate about the golden rule back then, and that's why he had so much success, right? This guy wrote his first book at 44, lost everything in a fire, rewrote the next book, essentially rewrote it, had no script, had no outline. He just was in his head, it was in his heart, and he wrote it, right? And so one of the quotes he said is, he goes, the golden rule for every business is this: put yourself in your customer's place always. And that's something that I did forever. I always treated my customers like always, how would I want to be treated? And I always then would challenge myself. Imagine if I was selling to my mom or my dad or my wife, like how would I treat them? Right. And that might seem corny and simple, but when we think about slowing down and think about the other person on the other side, and not, like John Wooden said, the little things. Are we going to send a resume that has typos? Are we going to send a resume or a consultant profile to a client that, we're going to send 3 resumes? Do they all match? Do they look the same? Does our logo the same spot? Right? Does the summary of our candidate skill set look the same? Or are we just winging it? Right? Think the little things matter, right? So think about that. So this dude, like I said, Orson Swett Martin, I talk about him in my book. I wish look at that stash too. If you had a stash like that in this age, think about the success you'd have with that bad boy. All right. Chapter 2 is about always setting expectations. Again, seems simple, but think about how often than not when people show up late, what does it make us feel like? I don't know about you, but I hate it. Client shows up. If you show up late to your client, you're already off to a bad start. Simple but impactful stuff. If you tell a client you're going to call them on March 15th, call them on March 15th and say, hey, Jacob, it's Casey with Winning the Relationship. I want to follow up and call. Per our last conversation, you told me to call you on March 15th. Is now a good time. Seems simple, right? I can tell you that a lot of people I coach and I see around that I've experienced working with, they don't always do that. They don't document, they forget. They don't remind the customer why they're doing it, because deals are won or lost always in discovery. So salespeople that think, well, I did my part, it's recruiter's fault. They didn't give me the right candidates. Wrong. Salespeople, I will challenge you, if you point the finger at yourself and always take accountability, just like a quarterback has to take accountability, watch how much harder your team will work for you, right? And set expectations. And if you're going to set them, make sure you follow through. I can tell you that not only does expectations, it sets positivity, it sets great relationships, it provides clarity. I don't know about you, but I've never been on a flight where the flight deck, the flight crew just took off without a flight plan. Right? I would not want to be on that flight unless they had a lot of drinks in the drink cart. All right, that's gonna be a rough flight. But obviously I'm joking and being sarcastic, but if you think about it, it builds trust, right? Hey, this is where we're going. We got weather ahead. We're going to be dodging this, dodging that. We're going to get you there safely. At least we know, right? But when clients, when they don't know what's going on, let's say, for example, we're struggling to find candidates for a client. And do we call the client and tell them, hey, just set expectations and let them know what's going on? Or do we just like, I don't want to call them. I'm scared. I don't want to make them mad. I don't know what to say. I think they're going to think I'm dumb. Get ahead of it. Sometimes I would just call to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Manager, just want to let you know we're working hard. We've made about 58 phone calls. We've connected with 83, but whatever, million people. Nothing's quite met our standard of what we want to present to you, but just want to keep you in the loop, let you know what's going on. More often than not, again, I'm not providing them really any information other than I'm providing them no information, which is better than nothing. The silence is not good when you don't do that. I saw it numerous times in my career. So again, an easy takeaway. Get ahead of it, set expectations always, because you will find it will build stronger relationships. So if we think about this, I'm going to skip this because I'm just from the spirit of time, but if you have examples of how you've set expectations, maybe you can just write those down. Think about times where you have set expectations and it worked, or transversely, think about a time where maybe you didn't set expectations and what was the negative outcome for you, your team, your client that might make you think, God, I wish I would have done that differently. And throughout, like I said, throughout this book, I have exercises where you're going to go through these types of things and write them down. And one of my favorite clients, actually, I'll give her a shout out, Tish, if you're on this by chance. She works at a company called AIM Consulting. She was my client for years. After she read my book, we met over Zoom during the pandemic, and she said, she had a page full of notes. She goes, Casey, Jacob, sorry, I'm gonna drop an A-bomb here. She goes, you just kicked my own ass. Why did you do that? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. What? She's like, no, you made me think. I wrote down all these notes. It was such a fresh reminder of the little things I need to be focusing on. So that wasn't my goal to make people think that way, but I wanted people to think in a very conversationalist style. All right. Chapter 3 is about listening versus hearing. So I don't know about you. So hearing is subconscious. We hear everything. We hear the birds chirping. We hear sometimes we can block out noise. Listening is this. I'm looking you in the eye. Jacob, what can I do for you? What's going on? Listening is not this. Yep. Yeah. Wait, what'd you say? Wait, what? Right. We humans, we're not good at multitasking. We think we are. We always talk about multitasking. But if I'm talking to you right now and you hear the keyboard pounding, that's annoying to listen to, right? If you're going to type when you're talking to your client, you're going to take notes, let them know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm going to be taking notes in the background just to make sure I capture everything we're talking about. If you hear the keyboard, just want to let you know. Back to setting expectations, right? Get ahead of things that you know your clients are already thinking about before they judge you and put you in the same bucket of every other average salesperson or recruiter or leader, right? Listening, you actually can get better at. It's a skill. There's proven exercises. I would encourage you to research those. So we think about it like the feeling I just described. Like, think about last time you called a tech support line, or you called and they're following the rep. They're following the script. They're answering questions you didn't ask. They're telling you things you didn't ask, right? Versus I just want someone to listen to me, right? Because silence sometimes from a seller's perspective and your client's talking, listen, right? It's a gift. It's one of the best gifts we can give any relationship. And when you don't get people to listen to, it's one of the worst things you can erode relationships. So I really hope you take that to heart. So the negative consequences of listening, right? I mean, I can think of numerous times when you let's say, for example, you're on the phone with your client, you're taking requirements down for a project, you're making sure you understand the top 3 things that the set of project managers or business analysts or developers need to be successful. Now, you might have heard something, your recruiting team might have heard something, but instead, why don't we, before you break that room or the Zoom call, and say, hey, team, well, what did everybody hear? Let's make sure we're all on the same page. What are 3 things we heard that are the top 3 things that our client needs out of all the talent we're going to present, so they're going to make them successful? Seems simple. Most teams aren't doing it. I can tell you. I've seen it for years, right? These are little things like the old John Wooden stuff, like we're going to keep talking about throughout this presentation today. Clients want to work with people who are easy to work with. When I managed this large team, I always told our large account team when I was at Kforce, I said, I want us to be known as 2 things. We're easy to work with and we're flexible. And when you listen and you make life easy on the client, you get ahead of it, you treat them well, you're setting expectations, more often than not, they're going to pick you first. All right, ditching the ego. Ditching the ego is something that we all unfortunately focus too much on. And I used to joke when I was at Hall Kenyon, I used to talk about a hat rack. I don't know if some old HKers are here, but we would talk about the hat rack's not for hats, it's for egos. So before you walk in that door, before you join your computer, before you join a Zoom call at your computer, whatever it is, realize that you're going to learn something today, right? Listen to learn versus listen to persuade, right? Think about, it's not always about you, right? One of my favorite pieces of advice someone gave me a long time ago, and I know if there's people that know me, you know what I'm going to say, is you can be right or you can get what you want. Rarely do you get both, okay? And as we think about relationship building, it's not always about being right. It's about trying to find a solution that brings positivity to everybody involved, right? So you got to be self-aware. You got to understand that if you don't know, and if you're arguing for the wrong reasons, if you're trying to convince a client that this is the perfect candidate, that they have all the skills, my first question would be, how do you know? Are you a computer science major? Do you have development skills? Are you just thinking they're perfect because that's what the resume says or what they told you? Do we do the extra step? Do we verify reference? Do we talk to some people that might know that person? How do we know? Right? We don't always know, right? So be self-aware and let that ego go. The other thing I like talking about as relates to ego is practice. Now, practice, when I say practice, most salespeople, I'm sure if you're on this call, you got tense this now. You're like, oh, I don't like role playing. I don't like role playing because I don't like role playing because I don't sound like that in front of my client. I never, when I practice, it's different. I'm way better in front of the client, and I would call BS. I've seen it. I've videotaped people. I've been videotaped. And the analogy I always like to do when I would travel to Tampa to my friends at Kforce, which I love dearly and miss them and wish them all the best, is, and you think about practice like the Tampa Bay Rays or the Seattle Mariners, they take batting practice 4 or 5 times a week. They get paid millions of dollars. I used to joke with people, Kforce, I said, okay, man, so we're professionals in our industry. They're professionals in their industry. They practice 4 to 5 times a week. We don't practice 4 times a week. They make millions of dollars. We don't make millions of dollars. I guess I'm confused. What makes us so elite that we don't have to practice? And I would just look at them. And there'd be like this kind of awkward stare, like, why you got to be a you-know-what, Casey? I'm not trying to be a you-know-what. I'm trying to prove a point that if we aren't practicing with each other on our craft to build better relationships, we're practicing on our clients. So if we're comfortable doing that, let's start leading with that. Hey, Mr. Client, it's Casey with ABC Company. It's funny. I have no idea what your company does. I'm just winging it today. And I was going to practice on you and ask a lot of questions that might not make sense. I might get frustrated. I might black out. I might not listen. And then I'm hoping at the end, I'm going to ask for the exclusive because my managers told me to ask for the exclusive a lot because I'm insecure about competition. And I just want you to give me all your business, right? Obviously, massive sarcasm, but that's not the point. The point is practice your craft. Practice asking great questions. And one thing I learned in my career, which is called TED-based questions, which is absolute gold, which stands for tell me, explain, describe. I would challenge you every time you ask questions at your career, at your company, whatever product or service you're selling, whatever offering your company does, understand it's not what you sell, it's the problem you sell. It's a problem you solve. That's what we're doing. That's what great sellers do. They're curious. They listen, they ask great questions, they make sure they have uncovered a pain or a problem, and then tie that back to how does that impact the business? Not just the body, not just that you need to fill a role, fill a position. It's how are you understanding their business, right? And by practicing, it's amazing how good you can get. And so leaders, back to my humility plus vulnerability equals leadership. If you're going to role play, I'd challenge the leader or the top salesperson in your office, you go first. Let them know that this is how I got to the top. Don't be afraid to mess up. And if you mess up, have fun with it. Because I tell you, I'd rather mess up in front of my peers than my client. Now, we're never going to be perfect, right? There's going to be opportunities when we do mess up. But a higher chance of success when we practice with our team, it's going to create a learning environment. You're going to have fun. I used to make up crazy names. I used to make it fun, right? Because in the end, that's all we got. We got attitude and effort each day. But if I can cultivate a learning environment, like chapter 1 says, golden rule, bring positivity to these practice sessions and watch how much fun you have. One thing I learned late in my career is this thing called give 2, take 2. And this was mainly for internal purposes only, where we'd say, tell me 2 things that went great, 2 things I need to do a better job of. I learned this from a guy named John Kaplan. And I took this actually to another level. I actually started asking my clients this, even when we would win a project, win a role, whatever you guys call it. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, thank you for the opportunity. I'm so excited that we were able to get the job done for you. In the spirit of learning, we're always watching film, sports analogy there. We're always trying to think about ways we can be a better version of ourselves. So you think about, what are 2 reasons why you chose our company, and 2 reasons maybe you wouldn't next time, or what are 2 things that we could have done differently? And then when you hear that, then you apply TED-based questions to learn more about that problem, right? Because what happens is most likely sellers, we sell. I can tell you early in my career, I remember going on my first meeting. If Angela's on this phone, it was the most bizarre meeting. We met, it was startup world. We went to this random office. Like I thought I was in this, it was like almost like going to a drug deal. It was like scary. And the dude was in, no joke, in a wheelchair with racing gloves on. And I went and presented everything about Hall Kenyon. I was like, man, I killed that. It was awesome. And just like, what'd you learn? I'm like, good question. I didn't learn much, right? But the power of asking for help, the power of understanding what we can do to get better, right? Like the quote I said earlier, it's not okay not to know every answer, just not okay not to do anything about it, right? Shout out to John Kaplan. Ask questions. Always seek that ability to learn, because when you do, you're going to learn about other things. You're going to make sure there's no gaps untold. And if we ditch that ego, we're self-aware about what areas of our own game we can do to get better. Watch what happens to your culture. Watch what happens to the relationships you're going to build. And I can tell you guys, this is not stuff I'm just making up and I wrote. These are things that, and if people are on this call who work with me, I know you can say he's backing it up. I did these things day in and day out, which is why I was number one for so many years at Kforce. Lastly, I want to tell a quick story. In the spirit of being coached. So at the end of my Kforce journey, I was a part of a small team where we were leading a big sales training event. We traveled all over the United States, and part of our training, we had to get certified to learn about a new offering we were going to be teaching roughly about 800 reps at our company. And we were working with this firm, and I was down in Dallas, and the gentleman, his name's Ray, and we were in a room with my CMO, a few of my peers, and we had to present. It was a 2-day presentation. The first day I had to present on one part of the information. And I did. And I prepped a little bit, but I knew it. I mean, I was like, I got this, right? And I wasn't arrogant about it. In my mind, I thought I knew it. And I went down the next day, I presented, and and body language was great. People were smiling. The room felt good. Ray goes, Casey, how'd you think you did? I'm like, Ray, I thought I did pretty good. I've hit on the key topics. I read your body language. You were smiling a couple of times. And he looks at me, he's like, Casey, what I've heard about you is that you're elite. And that was nowhere near elite. I'm going to pass you. It was good, but I expect better from you. Who's next? And I was like, wow. And so then back to this ego thing, I had a choice. Do I get mad? Do I blame him? Do you say, screw you, dude? I'm the number one guy at Kforce. Why are you talking to me that way? Thank God I'm not that way. Thank God I was teammates, coaches, leaders, people around me, how I was wired. I said, I was so mad at myself because I let him down. I made him think that I wasn't prepared, which is BS. Right? So end of the day, we get done. A few of my buddies are like, hey, Case, we're gonna grab beer at the bar. I'm like, hold on, guys. I got to go to my room real quick and grab a few things. I'll be down in a sec. I got to my room. Now from 6, I had a room service delivered from 6 o'clock, 6:30 or so till 10:30. I practiced session 2 in front of the mirror over and over and over and over. I mean, if the room service came in or the house clean, they would have thought, what is wrong with this dude? He's got a screw loose. He's talking to himself in the mirror. But I did it because I did not want to let Ray down. And I didn't want to have anybody think that I was either too big to practice, I was not prepared. And it was such a good reminder lesson. This is like late in my career, like year 18 or 19. That next morning, I wake up and I'm so jacked up, ready to go, get in the elevator. My CMO's like, you all right, dude? What's going on? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just ready to compete. Just ready to go. I was mad, fiery, not to a bad thing, but I was just ready to go. And then my friend at the time, Sandy, he goes, Ray's like, all right, Sandy, you're going to go first. I'm like, you know what? If it's okay, Ray, I got to go first. Sorry, Sandy, I'm going. Let's go. Get the timer going. And I just went into freaking compete mode. And I went day 2 in my mind. I know I killed it. And all Ray looked at me, goes, Casey, that's what elite looks like. Next, let's go, Sandy. And that's all he had to say. And to this day, we're still friends. I wrote about it in my book. I share that story often with whether I'm talking to companies, college teams, sports teams, because we're all replaceable. Every single one of us. Even though as all the success I had at Kforce, guess what, guys? They're still doing great. Some of the people there probably forgot I even worked there, right? Unless I dial your number and it's 911, you're not that important. No one is. So come with that mindset of stay humble, right? Change is going to happen. We deal with change or we get dealt by it. But if you can check that ego at the door with our relationships, whether our teammates, do go out of your way to make life on your teammate easier and watch what happens to your culture. All right. As a competitor, this is my struggle that I always have to work on is patience. Patience. I journal about it. I pray about it. I'm always talking about patience. So success takes time. It's not just a light switch. You're not gonna be like, hey, today I'm successful. It's going to happen over time. You're going to start feeling it, but you got to buy these little things like John Wooden says, like I say, it's going to take time. Malcolm Gladwell, I don't know if this stat still is true, but I believe in it. He talks about in his book, Outliers, it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something or to become elite. And I think with flow state and flow science, they're actually saying once you can reach flow, you can actually cut that in half. But in the end, I always like to say 10,000 hours, you got to put in the time, the effort, the work to become good at what you're going to do. And Tommy Lasorda talks about good, great, and elite. He talks about there's three types of people in life: people who watch things happen, people who wonder how things happen, or people who make things happen. So when you make things happen, it takes time, right? Relationships are not going to be forced. I share a story in my book. Shout out to Nadine. It took me 5 years to meet with her. 5 years. She ended up being one of my most strongest relationships to this date. And believe it or not, I'm having coffee with her tomorrow morning. And I left Kforce over 2 years ago. So she and I are still friends to this day. And it takes time because I did the little things. The way I built the relationship, all the things I'm talking about were because of that. I always say, I like this equation too. It says commonality plus rapport plus trust equals relationships. When we think about commonality, this is what the power of LinkedIn is. I didn't have LinkedIn when I first started. I had a phone book and the white pages. Lisa Crawford, if you're on this thing, I know you can back me up on that. So when you're on LinkedIn, when you're on social, whatever we're going to be doing, try to find some commonality, something in their profile, something that maybe there's something they're quoting, they're commenting on, something that comes to mind for them that you can actually use it, like I said, a TED-based question to inquire more about what is important to them, right? Because with commonality, it leads to rapport. You're not even talking about yourself yet, right? You're not even talking about your business. You're talking about them. Ask questions about them, understand their business, understand their problems, understand what's making life not good for them right now, understand where they want to go, understand what makes their team successful, understand how do you measure success, right? Ask great questions and watch what happens to the relationships you're going to build. And now what a better perfect time than right now. So if you're not doing any of these things I've shared with that helped me for 20 plus years, I would encourage you to take this serious. I would encourage you to check out my book and read it. It's a very easy read. I've had people say, hey, Casey, who trained you to be a conversationalist writer? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. What does that mean? And when I think about being a conversationalist writer, the number of business development emails I had to write over time, I always wanted to focus on tone. And I know Hannah Pryor, if you're on this thing, you and I are such messaging, passionate people. Tone is everything, right? If you have the right tone, over time, with patience, you're going to have success. So get uncomfortable. Some of the stuff might be easy. Some of it might be a refresher for you on this call. If it's not, get uncomfortable, because when you get uncomfortable, that's when growth happens. When you try new skill sets, that's what happens. Before I became a podcaster, I was uncomfortable. I was a little bit scared, like, well, how do I do it? And how do I edit it? And what am I going to do? And I don't know. Excuse. And I finally said, I will be a podcaster. And my friend Ty Nunez came to my house and we literally spent 2 hours, put the equipment together. You're looking at it right here. Next thing I know, 10 episodes later, next thing you know, I'm producing episode 86 on Thursday. I have episodes booked through July right now. So it takes time, but it was uncomfortable. But I could say once I got through it, best feeling ever. As an author, I proved that football guys, we can put sentences together. Sarcasm. Shout out to the football players out there, right? But the only reason I put that book together is because from, call it April or May through July or August, from 9 to 11:30 each day, I wrote every day. It was super uncomfortable. It was hard, not fun. At times I thought, man, this is gonna be good. The days it was good, it sucked. The days I was horrible, it was some of my best days writing, right? So all these things we're talking about relationships, about the fundamentals you need are so important, and they're there for a reason. And if you look at anybody who's successful, if anybody's a soccer fan, Beckham, one of his number one things he said that led to his success, one of the most highest paid Premier League soccer, one of the highest paid MLS guys ever, practice. That's the number one thing. That's what his secret sauce was. So Jacob, I'm going to pass it back to you. If there's questions, I'm more than happy to, we can stop sharing now. I'd love if I want to put questions in the chat. I want to be respectful of people's time. We have about 15 minutes left, I believe. But I want to say thank you. If you want to learn more about me, you can visit my website. I have that below. If you want to look at, check out my book and the just the humbling reviews that people have taken time to leave on Amazon. Thank you if you've been one of them. And if you're a dad out there, even a mom, you want to hear what dads are thinking about. I'd encourage you to check out my podcast. It's live. Like I said, it's on all major podcast players. It's easy. If you hit subscribe, they come right to you every Thursday morning. But it's been an honor to speak with you. I hope that you have learned a few things or relearned a few things. And I also want to give a shout out to Jan and Jacob at Gustav. You know, I was introduced to them recently from Henna Pryor, and I was immediately impressed by their software tool that I went through, and I was immediately impressed by, you know, for not ever being a recruiter or an account manager. Like, I was like, wow, these guys, they put a lot of effort into it. And I wish I had access to a tool like this back when I was working. So I would encourage you, if you haven't checked their tool out, take time to do it. It's a really slick tool. Well, I'm done sharing. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to hear from anybody. Yeah, great question. Great question. So for me, as I think about, I'm building relationships too. I'm meeting with people on LinkedIn I've never met before, right? We're in this virtual selling world. It's tough to get phone numbers, but to me, I've found a lot of success this year as I built my coaching business. I joined a networking event online, and then showed up every Friday. It was called the Shift Up. So Eben Tobias Green, shout out to you. And I literally showed up every week without a reason. And I just started asking questions and trying to serve others. And the number of people that have sent referrals my way by doing that are countless. And the number of doors that have been opened up because of that group, countless. So even though it's hard, I just challenge yourself. It's hard right now, but it's hard for everybody. Right. And so the time I'm going to spend less time thinking about this sucks, I can't figure out ways to get in touch with people, and just instead change my mindset in the morning to like, I'm going to go find ways to connect. I'm going to join network. I'm going to join groups, LinkedIn groups. I'm going to comment on people's, I'm going to just find any way I can to be creative to get my foot in the door, because a lot of these companies you're competing against, it's a highly competitive space. They already have sustained relationships. So when you think about the give to, take to, it's a great question. You can ask clients where they already have a vendor list. Tell me 2 things you love about the 10 suppliers you have, and 2 things you wish you'd change. Because if anybody you get on the phone or you engage with, you have to find a problem. You have to expose a problem. Ideally, expose a problem that highlights some of your value or the problems that your company solves. So those would be the things I'd be thinking about in getting my foot in the door with other companies. Thanks, Ross, for the shout out, buddy. James, what can I do for you? Love that, man. I serve others. Just if you check out my book, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, man, I want to learn and love. I like to learn about others too. So I hope this is not the first time we're going to be talking. Michelle, thank you for your kind words. Kyle, what is your tip for not sounding sales pitchy or robotic right off the bat? Kyle, I would practice. Best thing you can do, record yourself on your phone. Do you sound salesy? Let the phone say it. Practice with a friend, spouse, wife, a leader, whoever it may be. The more that you practice, get your reps in the end, you're not selling anything, right? You're selling a problem. Think about it. And I always tell sellers, I want to hear 2 things. I want to hear 2 words when I meet with somebody. I want to hear the words, great question. So Kyle, when you hear great question, now I just made them think. I made them think. And if I make someone think, back to my friend, not my friend, I wish he was my friend, the great Maya Angelou, she says, it's not what you said, why you said it, it's how you said something that made people feel when you leave the room. If we ask great questions when we're pitching something, or we're trying to explore a problem or something that's not going right for a business, they're going to remember you that much more versus this PowerPoint presentation I'm giving now. You're not going to remember a lot of the stuff. Hopefully what you remember is stories I shared with you, questions I said, reminders I told you about. So those would be things I'd be thinking about. If you don't know the person you're writing to an intro note, what tone would you emulate? Also, thank you so much. You did. I like, again, I always say be yourself, because everybody else is already taken. I assume that I know everybody, not in an arrogant way, but like when my son was 7, I told him I made friends for a living, right? And so I would encourage you before you do any sort of outreach, don't assume that you can help people. Don't assume that you can solve problems. The number of LinkedIn requests I get that tell me they're going to guarantee me making 40 grand a month by all the coaching stuff they're going to give me. I'm like, how do you know? Ignore. I don't accept those. Ask, hey, Casey, I want to connect with you because I was interested about your 20-year career with Kforce. Well, how'd you make it? What'd you do? Right? Ask me a question that makes me want to engage with you, right? Ruben, what is one interview question you would ask a recruiter account manager? Ooh, I love this one, Ruben. My favorite one ever. I would ask this. I would say, out of the gate, I would say, is it more important for you, Mr. Candidate, to be right, or Mrs. Candidate? Do you want to be right or get what you want? You can't get both. Rarely do you get both. And the reason why I love asking that question, Ruben, is because you're going to learn about if someone's got ego. If they say, I want to be right, I quickly would shut that down. Or I like taking people golfing when I interview them, because on the golf course, you'll learn a lot about someone's character. Easy to cheat on the golf course. They make 6. Yeah, mark me down for a birdie. You didn't. You're lying, right? How do introvert people build confidence to speak openly and build solid relationships? Ashish, I would still practice. In the end, everybody wants to laugh. Everybody wants to smile. Everybody wants to share their story. But what questions do we ask to allow us to get those out? And the more you practice, the more your confidence is going to go through the roof, right? So I would, like I mentioned at the end, that confidence piece and that on getting uncomfortable, just get uncomfortable, do it, right? And what helped me figure that out, Ashish, is I'm going to get uncomfortable, do it, or I'm going to allow my competitors to do it and watch them out compete me. And that quickly motivated me not to want to let my competitors beat me. Bobby Bouchard, shout out to the H1B guy. I think that's what he calls himself now. He says, keys to better digital engagement and interaction. Be authentic. Be consistent. Post of value. Don't just post. Share content that you know your clients are going to want to learn more about. Ask questions. The best part about social engagement that I'm jealous of everyone right now who's building their business, the clients can't stop you from commenting on their post. So if you're thoughtful, if you take a minute to say, man, great post. If there's a manager you're trying to meet and you see him comment on something, comment on it and say, man, great post. I learned a lot. That was really good insight. Back to treating people the way you want to be treated. Lead with positivity. Watch what happens when we treat them like that way. What was your most difficult sales call and why? James, great question. I would say a mistake I made earlier in my career. I was trying to call a healthcare client, and I told the manager that, hey, we're working with these people in this group. And in my mind, I was like, we're not like we were supplying consultants or contractors to these other groups. He took it like I was assuming that I was already working with, I was working internally with them. Like he thought that I was like saying I was an internal employee. And I still remember his name. His name is Michael Hoyer. It'll haunt me for days. And it was totally, I misspoke, didn't mean to say it a certain way. He took what I said out of context. Again, my fault, not his. He never took my call again. So that lesson early in my career, like 23 years old, I was so focused on every word I say matters. Every word I type matters. And make sure that I focus on those, because those will impact my relationships. And I would just, on top of that, say around messaging, your email signature better match your email signature on your phone. If those of you have on your email that says on your iPhone or smartphone, please excuse from typos sent from my iPhone, that's lazy. Take that off. That's telling someone you're going to make mistakes. Take time to make sure you're doing the little things, like John Wooden said. What else? Anybody else? This has been fun. Jacob, do you want to take it over?
There was one question in the Q&A chat. Casey referred to Nadine in his talk. Nadine who?
Where is that one?
In the Q&A chat. Can you see it?
Is it recent? Did it just come through?
No, and it's a special chat on the right side, but maybe I'm the only one to see it as host.
No, I see a bunch of them. So Nadine was a vice president. Nadine was a vice president at a client I worked with. She had 5 she had like 5 or 6 managers we worked with. We had, 15, 20 contractors. She would never take my call. But once I started working with her team, then I used those stories to follow up with Nadine as the vice president. And I just made it about her team. It wasn't about me. I just want to say, hey, Nadine, it's Casey with Kforce. I'm just so thankful for the opportunity to serve your team. I just want to let you know, here's some of the problems we're helping resolve. Here are the ways we're engaging your team. Here's some of the metrics that we're really focused on helping drive value back to your organization. If you have a minute, I'd love to find time to just introduce myself. I know your schedule's busy, but we met. If I texted her right now, I bet she'd respond back. If I FaceTimed her, she'd take my call right now. I haven't worked with her in years, right? I know her daughter's name. I know what her daughter does. I know what her husband does. I know where she likes to I know where she likes to travel, right? Look, when you hear people say business isn't personal, BS, it is too. It is personal. It's about personal relationships, right? It's about being authentic. It's about, be yourself in this sales journey. And the number one reason to be yourself is because everybody else is already taken. Don't fake it till you make it. If your boss is telling that, it's the worst advice ever. Leaders, if you're saying that to your team, stop. Don't fake it till you make it. Let people learn. Let people grow. Sorry, I'm getting fired up. This is fun. James, you're probably fun too, buddy. I'd love to grab a beer. How can we streamline or put a process in place to make sure sales team is being effective at building relationships? I would ask to go on meetings with them, not because you want to manage them, because you want to learn more about the clients and figure out ways to support them. I would encourage practice and make it part of your daily, whether it's virtual practice, whether it's internally or externally. In the model of give two, take two, I want to, when you're doing pipeline reviews, tell me one thing that you're excited about your pipeline and one thing you wish you'd like to change about your pipeline, right? And so what I always, when I'm coaching sales teams, and what that question was from Nahal, we either can be honest with ourselves and that our pipeline is really, really good, or we can lie to ourselves and say, man, yeah, my pipeline's legit. I got all these deals are going to close this day, this day, this day. In the end, you're lying to yourself. And we have to encourage as leaders to ask for help and let them know the only way I'm going to help you close more deals is if I understand more about your business, understand more about the customers you're working with, understand more about the problems they want to help solve. I'm not here. So leaders, remove fear from the workplace. The days of making your sales team so scared, you're actually hurting them. This isn't 1926, right? Inspire your team. Use the fundamentals I talked about in part of this presentation, right? Create and cultivate a learning environment so they can be their best, and watch what happens to relationship building. Josh, what advice would you have to university students? Well, I love you asked this question, Josh, because one of the reasons I wrote my book was for university students. I think too many colleges, too many parents, too many companies are saying, you got to go out and build relationships. Well, of course we do, but how do we do that? I mean, it's tough to keep texting a relationship, right? Pick up the phone and call somebody. Practice your tone, practice the ways you communicate. I can tell you the number of people that at the end of my journey at Kforce where my clients let consultants go because they couldn't talk. They didn't know how to interact with people, right? If I'm sitting next door to my buddy and I'm texting him, that's a problem. If I'm texting my dad from the front seat, that's a problem. Put the phone down, interact with people, right? Be curious, Josh, learn about others. There's a great book by Stephen Covey. I read it in my 20s. It didn't really make a lot of sense. I reread it again in my 40s. One of the best books I ever read. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book's timeless. So much wisdom in there. I would highly recommend you look at that. Udita says, wait, don't fake what? Don't fake you know something. There's a phrase that says, don't fake it till you make it. If you don't know something, ask for help. Don't fake like you understand what the client's talking about if you don't know. Right? The more you can be prepared for a meeting, but sometimes you have to show vulnerability to say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm not sure what that says. Can you talk to me more about it? I did that numerous times when I would hear technology terms that I was uncomfortable with or unfamiliar with. Because 2 things happen. Either I pretend I know what the client's talking about because I don't want to look dumb. And then I go back and tell my recruiting team, hey, we need ABC skill set. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. Go look it up. That's transactional. That's not relationship. That's not value-based. You're eroding your value when you do that. Harry, what is your advice for recruiters selling a job? Well, I would make sure I understand what's important to my candidates. I would make sure I'm understanding with my account manager. I want to know, he or she, tell me why someone loves this place. Tell me why people leave this place. Tell me what a day in the life looks like at ABC company. I would talk about, again, the problem. So if you think about if I'm meeting with a candidate and he or she tells me these are why I left this company, this company, this company, like find out why those things are and then try to match that. If that you can uncover that problem at the place where they're going on ways that company doesn't do it the same way the person already came from. Now all you're doing is just being a storyteller, right? You're not selling anything, right? If we're having to sell or force someone to do something, most likely they're going to resist us. Selling is all about asking great questions of value, so your idea becomes their idea. That's value-based selling.
Perfect.
If people have other questions, I know, Jacob, you got to get to your stuff. If people have any additional questions, please connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out, send me an email. I'm here to support. I'm here to learn. I have a full plate right now coaching other companies, but if you are interested in learning more about services I provide, I'd love to be able to connect with you. Jacob, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for being a speaker here. It was awesome. We had nearly 150 people joining us. So awesome job. I think everyone learned a lot. So a big thank you to you. I will just share my screen to give a quick demo about Gustav if anyone is interested. So we just launched a new product, which is called the Shared List. And can you see my screen, Casey?
Yep.
Perfect. And what we basically want to do with it is to build a better way for staffing companies to share their available candidates online with their end clients. So how does it work? Basically, all you have to do is add your candidates by dragging and dropping the candidate CV in here, or connecting Gustav with Bullhorn, or in the future we will add other ATSs. And then we'll get a list which you can share. Give me a second. You can share, which you can share with your end clients. So here they can see all the available candidates you have for them. And if they're interested in a candidate, they can click on the candidate, request the candidate CV from your team, and even chat with your team in the chat here as well. So if you're interested and want to learn more about our new product, just let us know by voting in the poll, or connecting with us on LinkedIn with the Gustav team, or with me. Yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you again, Casey, and yeah. Now,
Jacob, hold on real quick. I'm gonna challenge people who are still there. I'm gonna ask them for some feedback to give you in the spirit of feedback. So let me finish my typing here real quick. You got to go give two, take two, baby.
awesome.
It's happy hour in Austria. It's almost time for night time for you.
Yeah, it's time for a beer.
So yeah, I'd love any feedback. And if anybody, a huge favor, I will say, if you have read the book or you decide to read the book, it would be an honor if you just go to Amazon and leave an honest review. I can take direct feedback. So if you thought it was the worst book ever, give it 1 star and tell me why. If it was the best book ever, please tell me why as well. That would be a huge honor.
And for anyone who's interested, I will just share one more time the link to Casey's book in the chat. So it's just a click to buy it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Hari. Thank you, Ruben. Sumaya, did I say that right? It's an awesome name. I love that. Thank you, Liz.
One more thing, if you're interested, Gustav, about Gustav, you can go to gustav.app to learn more as well. So that's our website. I will just share it in the chat as well.
And Jacob, I'm not just saying that because I'm speaking. Like when I told Henna, just for everybody, and this is me being brutally honest and authentic, I was surprised that you guys did not come from the industry, and the fact that you've put so much thought and detail into the requirements of the software. So shout out to you guys. That's exciting to see. I was talking to Bobby Bouchard on this thing, when he and I used to work together, and he and I are going to connect later this week or next week. And he said he's been using your product for many years. So that's
Awesome.
there's an authentic testament for you. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And for anyone interested as well, we are hosting a session with Maurice Fuller next week as well. I will share the link to that one as well again. So if you're interested in this one, yeah, please join us as well. It's about the journey, how to successfully digitally transform your staffing firm. So I think that would be interesting for some of you as well.
Thanks, Mason. All right. Are we done, brother?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Crush the week. You will or you won't. Go get them, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. And there's time for networking. If you want, to your left, there's the networking tab. If you click there, you can get randomly matched up with somebody else. So yeah, you can network a little bit longer.
All right. I'll stay on network. See how this, I'll give this a go.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. See you next week, hopefully.